Today I'll be discovering the dark truth behind Ignited Foxy. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like. Ignited Foxy or Foxy is one of the 4 main antagonists of the Joy of Creation franchise, and is a member of the Ignited. He is one of the 3 secondary antagonists of the Joy of Creation and the Joy of Creation, Reborn, and is also the secondary antagonist of Bedroom and Office. He is also the main antagonist along with Ignited Freddy in Living Room, and is the one of the 4 overarching secondary antagonists in the Joy of Creation story mode, before assimilating into creation for the 5th and final memory, Attic, and becoming the only titular antagonist of the franchise, due to becoming unstable from Scott Cawthon's actions in Office. Ignited Foxy looks like a more decrepit version of Withered Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Like Ignited Bonnie, Ignited Foxy lacks a mascot suit on most of his endoskeleton, leaving it bare. Similarly to the original Foxy, he sports a pirate hook on his right hand. Apart from multiples of burned-up dirt covering the mascot suit, he also is meant to be the most exaggerated of the Ignited. Ignited Foxy has a long, triangular snout with a small black nose and a similar bottom jaw that sits below the snout. It is lined with several sharp, plastic teeth. Inside his mouth is what appears to be a decayed set of endoskeleton teeth. Ignited Foxy has wires sticking out of both sides of his head, as well as 4 tufts of hair on the top of his head. Just above his left eye are a couple red and blue wires coming out of the top left side of his endoskeleton head. He has a right ear jutting out of a large hole in his suit's head, but seems to be lacking a left ear. The wires on the other side of Ignited Foxy's head may be just a remainder of the ear. Like the original Ignited Foxy has a long strip of a black string across his head, but unlike the original Ignited Foxy, he lacks an eye patch. Like the other member of the Ignited, excluding Ignited Bonnie, he has luminous white pupils in each hollow eye socket, but in some cases, his eyes are red. Also like the original Ignited Foxy wears brown linen pants that are shredded at the bottom. Out of all the Ignited Foxy has not lost any limbs other than his ear. The only differences between his design in the Joy of Creation and his revival design The Joy of Creation, Reborn are the rigging of his model and his glaringly empty pupils. Ignited Foxy will start off lying low on the balcony. After the timer passes 3 hours, he will start to rise slowly up. He will make no sound, unlike the other Ignited animatronics. You should shine your flashlight at him as soon as possible before he is fully risen, or else he will come in and jump scare you. The Joy of Creation, Reborn free roam test Ignited Foxy hangs out with Ignited Chica outside the house as the glowing eyes, with only the silhouette of Ignited Bonnie visible. When the player starts the attic, turning on their flashlight will be a bad idea, since Ignited Foxy will start in front of them, as doing so will result in Ignited Foxy automatically transforming into his predatory condition to charge toward the player, eventually killing the player and ending their attempt. Ignited Foxy's teaser references that it is a bad idea to perform this. This is further worsened by the fact that when the player starts the attic, Ignited Foxy will sometimes begin already charging toward the player while active, which will result in first tries virtually impractical in attic, though this can be mitigated by using the flashlight against him during this situation. Like the other challenges, the player is given a certain amount of time to complete their objective. Though instead of 60 seconds, 1 minute, the player is given 90 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds. The objective is to also find 5 objects before Ignited Foxy reaches the player. The extra time is essential for survival. While Ignited Freddy and Ignited Bonnie can be easily outran, though the latter is less practical than the former due to the latter's drastically faster running speed, Ignited Foxy can run much more hastily, even slightly at the same speed as Sonic. If he starts to run, escape is virtually impossible. How Ignited Foxy should be deterred in the moment can be determined by sound as well as visuals. If the player is unable to look behind for Ignited Foxy's current physical features, they can instead listen for his rapid mechanical footsteps to begin to approach them. When deciding on how to use the flashlight on him, the only times it should be used is if Ignited Foxy's eyes are glowing white while he directly charges at the player, as it will blind him due to light being the Ignited's weakness, only if their eyes are glowing white instead of red, giving the player a period to escape whilst he shields his eyes. If the flashlight is used on him while he is following the player passively, or he is standing around idly, and his eyes are empty, he will immediately transition to a predatory state and swiftly charge toward the player, eventually killing the player no matter what they do to defend against him. Due to red glowing eyes being immune to light, the flashlight is lackluster against Ignited Foxy during this situation. This is due to him actually being provoked by the player in this situation, instead of being defended against with justification. Due to these factors, Ignited Foxy seems to be arguably the less active and avoidable out of all of the Ignited, though at the less degree of Ignited tjoc. The player should also refrain from shining it at him after they deter him during the times he is running towards them unprovoked, as doing so counts as doing it while he is simply standing around idly. If the player fails the objective, this will trigger Ignited Foxy to automatically charge to the player. Unlike now the flashlight does, this will trigger Ignited Foxy into his predatory state or activate him rather immediately, eventually ending the game. Bedroom Ignited Foxy will start attacking at 2 AM, right after Ignited Freddy has attacked the player twice, and Ignited Bonnie and Ignited tjoc have attacked the player once. He is underneath the player's crib and will make scraping noises to warn of his attack. When the player sees Ignited Foxy's hook on the crib, they must quickly sleep to make him go away. He will not attack the player unless looked at, but will never go away until the player sleeps. Another way to tell he is there is that, near the window, his hand will stretch out. The player cannot use the curtains when Ignited Foxy is in his last phase. Living room Ignited Freddy and Ignited Foxy will both start attacking 10 seconds after Michael's phone call ends. Ignited Foxy approaches from the left hallway and Ignited Freddy approaches from the right hallway. On their journey to the doorway, they will constantly wait for each other in order to prevent the player from desynchronizing them, obligating the player to need to stay at the TV, constantly switching between who to pause first depending on when they will reset. In order to successfully defend against them, the player must pause them constantly while checking whom is closest to their respective doorway. This also means that the player is unable to break away from pausing them on the TV after they both attack, as they will always resynchronize for their preceding attack. When Ignited Freddy or Ignited Foxy are close to their respective doors, the player must hide by going against the wall next to the corresponding door to avoid being spotted and jump scared. In order to make sure they won't arrive at the same time, the player must sit on the couch and pause one of the animatronics by using the button at the top of the TV screen. Both Ignited Freddy and Ignited Foxy have a small chance to double back, causing their cameras on the TV to turn white after they have left the room. If this should happen, the player should hide behind the corresponding door immediately. Office they haven't come in a while, but I know they'll be back soon. They become impatient, louder, faster. Especially Foxy. He's the one who's been tormenting me the most. I don't know where he comes from, I don't know how, but he just appears near an entrance. I can hear him coming. He growls and scrapes the door. I just watch him through the cameras, and he eventually goes away, so I need to look at him in the monitors. I guess he doesn't like being watched. Ignited Foxy is the first animatronic to assault the player. Ignited Foxy will randomly spawn outside of one of 3 doors. The spawn is accompanied by a growl and possibly a knock, which will help determine what door Ignited Foxy is at. Ignited Foxy will only physically spawn in the room after the audio file for his knock is finished. The player must look at the computers in the office and move the camera to see Ignited Foxy's eyes. After a few seconds, Ignited Foxy will look and scream at the camera before running away. Ignited Foxy will get increasingly aggressive as the night goes on and, once the player reaches 2 AM, will be able to spawn in multiple positions simultaneously. Note, if Ignited Bonnie disables a camera, Ignited Foxy can no longer appear in the entrance with a disabled camera, unless all 3 cameras are broken, in which case Foxy will still appear at the last entrance that had an active camera. Whenever Ignited Foxy spawns in an entrance, the player can indeed avoid being attacked by him if they open it within the moment he appears as they are searching. However, if an entrance is opened straight after Ignited Foxy spawns in the respective entrance, he will be found activated, causing him to attack the player and end the player's run. If the player ignores Ignited Foxy spawning in a room completely and doesn't physically encounter him in the entrances, he will eventually break through into Scott's office from the respective entrance by force, and will gradually approach the player in silence until they make eye contact with him, as the latter of which will trigger him immediately and attack the player, forcing him into catatonia, in which case he will then immediately end the run. If the player ignores Ignited Foxy, especially if they still look at the cameras, while during his state after breaking into Scott's office, he will eventually kill the player after waiting a few seconds or so. This will occur straight after his secondary, more aggressive knock. In the office, Ignited Foxy primarily functions as a hindrance for attacking Ignited Freddy as well as defending against Ignited Chica, as the player isn't actually required to search for Ignited Freddy or Ignited Chica's cupcakes in the cameras to be able to easily flash him in the office or flash the cupcakes in the 3 left, center, and right rooms that they can appear in. Simply put, the player can instead just search every entrance for both elements of the memory, without Ignited Foxy to force the player to stare at an enemy in the cameras themselves. They could easily complete the night by searching for Ignited Freddy himself and Ignited Chica's cupcake.